In the quaint village of Armada, Michigan, where everyone knew everyone, and the streets whispered tales of decades past, there was an unsettling stillness in the air. It was a place where safety was a given, a small haven untouched by the chaos of the outside world. That tranquility was shattered one fateful evening in July. April Millsap, a vibrant 14-year-old with dreams as big as her smile, had stepped out into the evening sun, the summer breeze gently playing with her hair. She was the kind of girl who brought life to the sleepy streets of Armada, her energy infectious, her laughter a melody that resonated in the hearts of those she touched. As she walked, her loyal border collie, Penny, trotted alongside her, a faithful shadow in the twilight. Their path was familiar, a route taken many times before, leading to the outskirts of the village where nature whispered secrets only they could hear. April's mother watched her daughter disappear into the embrace of the evening, a casual reminder thrown over her shoulder. "Be back before dark, sweetie." A mother's words, spoken 1,000 times, expected to be heeded as always. But as the shadows grew longer and the night began to drape its cloak over Armada, a sense of unease crept into her mother's heart. Calls went unanswered. Messages echoed into the void of silence. April, the girl who always replied, who never left her mother wording, was now a whisper in the wind. The clock ticked, each second a hammer to her parents' hearts. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. In a place where everyone knew each other, where secrets couldn't find dark corners to hide, April's absence was a scream in the silence. Fearing the worst, her parents' hands trembled as they dialed the number that no parent ever wishes to call. The police. A report was made. A girl, just 14, out for a walk with her dog, now vanished into the thin summer air. As the village of Armada tucked itself into bed, a nightmare was just beginning to unfold on its serene streets. The search for April Millsap, a girl full of dreams and laughter, had begun. In the heart of Armada, where the winters were harsh but the community's heart was warm, April Millsap had blossomed like a spring flower. Born on the 2nd of January in the year 2000, her life was a tapestry of small-town joys and simple pleasures. Armada, with its population barely crossing 1,500, was a place where secrets were scarce and friendships were deep-rooted. April was the embodiment of this close-knit community, a beacon of youth and vitality, known and adored by all. She grew up in a home where love was the foundation, surrounded by a family that nurtured her dreams and celebrated her passions. From a young age, April's life was a whirlwind of activities. Her feet were as swift on the sports field as her imagination was boundless in the world of stories she loved to weave. Her greatest companion in these adventures was Penny, her border collie. Together, they explored the lush landscapes that skirted Armada, their laughter and barks resonating through the trees, a symphony of pure joy. April wasn't just a sports enthusiast. She was also a melody in motion in her school's music group. Her fingers danced on instruments, creating tunes that spoke of her youthful dreams and aspirations. In these notes, she found solace and expression, a creative outlet for a soul so vibrant. One of April's most cherished dreams was to become a veterinarian, a guardian for the animals she so dearly loved. Her heart was a haven for every creature, her spirit a testament to her compassion and empathy. In Armada, where the threat of serious crime hadn't darkened their doorsteps since the 70s, April's ambitions were not just dreams but imminent possibilities. Her future was a canvas awaiting the bright colors of her vast potential. This was April Millsap, a name synonymous with hope and the unbridled zest of youth, a name that echoed in the hearts of those who knew her. But as the night of her disappearance drew on, that name would become a beacon in a darkening mystery, a symbol of a peace shattered, and a community thrust into the unknown. The summer air of July 24, 2014, in Armada carried the lazy hum of cicadas, a serene soundtrack to the small village's tranquil life. April Millsap, with the freedom of school holidays upon her, was keen to make the most of these golden days. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows, as she laced up her sneakers for an evening walk, a routine that spelled normalcy in her life. Penny, her loyal companion, wagged her tail in anticipation, her eyes sparkling with the promise of adventure. April, with a casual wave goodbye to her mother, stepped out into the familiar embrace of her neighborhood. The route was a well-trodden one, a path that meandered to the outskirts of Armada, where the village's chatter faded into the whispers of nature. The time was around 5:30 p.m., a detail that would later be etched in the minds of all in Armada. April's journey was to the beloved trail, a place where her thoughts could roam free as her feet carried her along the scenic path. This was her sanctuary, a space where the stresses of teenage life were left behind, and only the beauty of the present moment mattered. As the evening crept in, a mother's intuition began to stir uneasily. April's walks were typically punctual, a routine that saw her return home just as the village was bathed in the soft glow of dusk. But tonight, the darkness seemed to fall a little faster, the night a little more suffocating. The clock's hands moved relentlessly forward, and with each passing minute, a growing sense of dread took root in her family's heart. April, the girl who was always a text or call away, was now unreachable, her phone an unresponsive beacon in the gathering gloom. Back at home, her mother's calls went unanswered, each ring echoing louder against the backdrop of rising panic. Text messages floated into the void, their digital urgency unmet. In a community where nights were for rest and stars, not for worry and fear, the unease was palpable. Hours trickled by, each one heavier than the last, until the clock struck a harrowing realization. April was missing. The evening's serenity was now shattered, replaced by a torrent of fear and the grim possibility of an unthinkable reality. Under a sky now darkened with worry, April's parents faced a decision no family should ever have to. With trembling hands and heavy hearts, they picked up the phone to dial the number that would change their lives forever. The police were alerted, a missing persons report filed, and the once peaceful village of Armada braced itself for a search that would unearth truths darker than the night itself. The news of April Millsap's disappearance reverberated through the streets of Armada like a thunderclap. In this small, interconnected community where neighbors were like family, the distress was immediate and profound. Homes that once harbored the gentle sounds of a peaceful night now echoed with concern and fear. At the Millsap household, the atmosphere was thick with dread. April's mother, once a beacon of strength and warmth, found herself engulfed in a storm of panic. Her daughter, the light of her life, had vanished into the evening, leaving behind a void filled with ominous possibilities. The local police, a team more accustomed to dealing with the trivial misdeeds of a sleepy village, suddenly found themselves at the helm of a case that was anything but ordinary. They arrived at the Millsap home, their expressions grim, their notebooks ready to capture every detail of April's last known moments. April's mother, struggling to compose herself, relayed the evening's events through tears. Each word was a struggle, a painful acknowledgement of a nightmare unfolding in real time. The description of her daughter, the clothes she wore, her distinctive smile, the exuberant bounce in her step, was now a plea for a safe return. Meanwhile, April's stepfather, away at work when the unthinkable happened, received a call that shattered the routine of his evening. The voice on the other end, belonging to a police officer, delivered the news with a gravity that sank deep into his soul. Dropping everything, he rushed home, his mind racing with fear and confusion. The community of Armada, once tucked in for the night, stirred awake. Neighbors stepped out of their homes, their faces etched with worry, their hearts heavy with the weight of the unknown. The village's streets, usually silent and deserted at this hour, buzzed with hushed conversations and hurried footsteps. In living rooms and kitchens, televisions flickered with the breaking news, while phones lit up with texts and calls. The village's web of relationships, a tapestry of shared histories and mutual care, was now a network mobilized by a singular urgent cause: to find April Millsap. The police, recognizing the severity of the situation, launched a full-scale search. Officers combed the streets, flashlights piercing the darkness, their voices calling out for April. Volunteers gathered, ready to scour the fields and woods, their determination a testament to the bonds that held this community together. As the night deepened, so did the sense of urgency. Armada, a village unaccustomed to the harsh glare of tragedy, found itself at the epicenter of a mystery that would test the strength of its spirit. The search for April Millsap, a girl adored by many, had united a community in a race against time, a quest for answers in the shroud of an unsettling night. The dawn in Armada broke with a heaviness that day, the sun's rays struggling to pierce the gloom that had enveloped the village. As the community rallied, joining the search in a desperate bid for answers, an unexpected and horrifying discovery was made. A couple, out for a leisurely bike ride along the same trail April often frequented, experienced a chilling interruption to their morning. Their tranquility was shattered by the sudden appearance of a frantic border collie, its leash dragging, its eyes filled with an unmistakable panic. The dog, recognized as April's Penny, was a silent harbinger of the grim reality that lay just off the beaten path. Compelled by a mix of concern and curiosity, the man followed Penny, who led him with purposeful urgency off the trail. The air grew heavy, the morning serenity replaced by a palpable tension. It was in a shallow ditch, a place where light and shadow played a morose dance, that they stumbled upon a sight that would haunt them forever. There, amidst the underbrush, lay April Millsap, her body still and lifeless. The scene was one of horror and confusion. Her injuries were severe and visible, speaking silently of a violent end. The peaceful surroundings, a stark contrast to the brutality of the scene, seemed to mourn in silence. The couple, reeling from the shock, called the police, their voices trembling with the gravity of their find. As the officers arrived, the reality of what had transpired began to sink in. The missing persons case had turned into something far more sinister, a murder investigation. April's mother, brought to the scene, was confronted with the most agonizing confirmation a parent could face. Through tears that blurred her vision, she identified her beloved daughter, her world crumbling around her in a vortex of grief and disbelief. The sight of April's body, partially clothed, with visible signs of an assault, sent shivers through the officers. This was not just a crime, it was a brutal violation of innocence, a stark reminder of the evil that can lurk even in the most idyllic of settings. The community of Armada, already united in concern for one of their own, now found themselves bound together in collective mourning. The news spread like wildfire, each household grappling with the devastating reality that their beloved April was gone, taken by an act of unfathomable cruelty. In the wake of this grim discovery, the police began their meticulous work, combing the scene for any clue, any piece of evidence that could lead them to the perpetrator. The tranquility of the village was now pierced by the sirens of police cars and the somber murmur of a community in shock. The murder of April Millsap had not only taken a life, but had also stolen the innocence of Armada. As the investigation unfolded, the villagers braced themselves for the journey through the dark underbelly of their once peaceful haven, a journey that would test the resilience of their community and the depths of their collective heart. The sleepy village of Armada, still reeling from the shock of April's brutal murder, watched as the quiet streets transformed into the epicenter of an intense police investigation. The local police force, unaccustomed to handling crimes of such magnitude, found themselves thrust into a case that would challenge them like never before. As the morning mist cleared, the police, alongside agents from the FBI and detectives from Detroit, descended upon the crime scene. The peaceful trail, once a place of refuge and joy for April, was now cordoned off, a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. The investigators began their painstaking work, combing through every inch of the area for clues. They noted the absence of April's personal belongings. Her small backpack and smartphone were nowhere to be found. This led to a chilling realization: the perpetrator might have taken them, possibly to remove any trace of evidence. Back at the police station, the team assembled a list of potential suspects and witnesses. In a village where everyone knew each other, the task of narrowing down suspects was both a blessing and a curse. The investigators faced the daunting prospect of suspecting members of their own close-knit community. They meticulously documented April's last known movements, retracing her steps on the day she vanished, the routine walk with Penny, the route she took, and the time she left home. Every detail was scrutinized for its potential to unlock the mystery. The police also launched a thorough search of the surrounding areas. Teams fanned out, scouring the woods and fields, hoping to find the missing items that belonged to April. Every piece of trash, every disturbed patch of earth was examined with the hope of finding a clue that would lead them to the killer. Meanwhile, April's family and friends were interviewed, their testimonies shedding light on her life and relationships. The police hoped to uncover any conflicts or potential threats that might have led to her tragic end. As the investigation continued, the community of Armada held its breath. The safety and innocence they had always taken for granted were shattered, replaced by a sense of vulnerability and fear. The mystery of who could commit such a heinous crime in their midst loomed large, casting a shadow over the village. The police, determined to bring justice to April and her family, worked tirelessly. They knew that in a case like this, time was of the essence, and every passing moment could mean the difference between catching the killer or letting them slip away. In the heart of Armada, a village once marked by its tranquility, the hunt for a murderer had begun, a quest for justice that would peel back the layers of this tight-knit community, revealing truths that would change it forever. As the investigation into April Millsap's murder intensified, detectives made a startling discovery that added a chilling dimension to the case. April's boyfriend, a key figure in her close-knit circle, revealed a haunting detail: a text message from April sent on the evening of her disappearance, a message that hinted at the terror she faced in her final moments. At precisely 6:28 p.m., April had sent a text that read, "I think I'm about to be abducted." This alarming message, sent just before her phone went silent, was a cry for help lost in the digital void. It was a glimpse into the fear that gripped her as she realized the danger she was in. Detectives were perplexed and deeply concerned by this revelation. Why had her boyfriend not reported this earlier? His delayed disclosure raised eyebrows and warranted further scrutiny. The boyfriend, distraught and shocked, explained that he had missed the message, his attention elsewhere during the crucial hours following its receipt. The police, while empathetic, couldn't overlook any possibility. They delved into the boyfriend's whereabouts and activities on the night of the murder. Alibis were checked, stories corroborated. They had to be thorough, leaving no stone unturned, no avenue unexplored. This message became a pivotal piece of evidence, reshaping the trajectory of the investigation. It suggested that April had encountered someone threatening enough to trigger such a fear, someone who possibly lurked within the familiar surroundings of Armada. The detectives pondered over the message, trying to piece together the puzzle. Who could have approached April on her evening walk? Was it someone she knew, someone from the village? Or was it a stranger who had invaded the sanctity of their community? The investigation branched out, focusing on identifying anyone who might have been in the vicinity of the trail around the time of April's last message. The police conducted interviews, combed through surveillance footage, and appealed to the public for any information. Each passing day brought a growing sense of urgency. The text message was a haunting reminder that a predator had walked among them, someone capable of snatching away a young life without a trace of remorse. As the community grappled with this terrifying reality, the police worked tirelessly to decode the message's implications. It was a race against time, a desperate search for answers in a case that had shaken the village of Armada to its core. April's text, a mere whisper in the digital wind, had become a loud echo in the investigation, a clue that might hold the key to unlocking the mystery of her tragic fate. The investigation into April Millsap's murder took a dramatic turn as witnesses began to come forward, each account shedding light on the shadowy figure that loomed large in the case. Their testimonies painted a vivid picture of a suspect and a series of events that fateful evening that would send ripples of fear through the community. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A witness reported seeing a man on a blue and white motorcycle near the trail around the time of April's disappearance. This detail was peculiar. The trail, a haven for pedestrians and cyclists, was not a place for motorized vehicles. This anomaly marked the motorcyclist as a person of interest. Further inquiries led to more witnesses, each adding layers to the profile of the mysterious motorcyclist. Some recalled seeing him in a heated argument with a young girl resembling April on the trail. These tense exchanges, observed from a distance, were initially dismissed as inconsequential. However, in the grim light of April's murder, they took on a sinister significance. Another witness provided a crucial piece of information. They had seen the man standing in the bushes near the trail, his motorcycle parked nearby. Their brief eye contact had left the witness with an unsettling feeling, the man's demeanor strikingly out of place. The descriptions of the motorcyclist began to form a consistent image. A man, potentially in his mid-30s, exuding an air of nervousness and agitation. The police sketched a composite based on these accounts, circulating it in the media and among the community. The motorcyclist became the focal point of the investigation. The police pondered over his possible connection to April. Was he just a passerby, or did he play a more sinister role in the events that led to her death? As the search for this mysterious figure intensified, the community of Armada found themselves looking at each other with suspicion and fear. The once familiar faces now bore the potential mark of a hidden monster. Trust, the bedrock of their close-knit society, was being eroded by the haunting possibility that one among them could be a killer. The police, determined to peel back the layers of this mystery, increased their efforts. Every tip, no matter how small, was followed up. The streets of Armada, once filled with the innocent laughter of children, now echoed with the sound of police sirens and the murmur of uneasy conversations. In the heart of this turmoil, the police continued their relentless pursuit, guided by the growing conviction that the man on the motorcycle held the key to solving the tragic puzzle of April Millsap's untimely death. As the days passed, the investigation into April Millsap's murder grew more intense, with the police working tirelessly to weave together the strands of evidence. The mysterious motorcyclist, a specter in the case, remained at the forefront of their efforts. It was a race against time, a pursuit of justice shadowed by the fear and grief that gripped Armada. The breakthrough came when a local resident, connecting the dots from the news, reported a significant observation. She recalled seeing a blue and white motorcycle, matching the description circulated by the police, parked at a neighboring house. This seemingly innocuous memory became a beacon, guiding the detectives to a new avenue in their investigation. With this lead, the police descended upon the residence in question. The house, located a short distance from Armada, appeared unremarkable, yet it held the potential key to unlocking the mystery. The occupants, a father and son duo, became persons of interest. The son, in particular, drew attention due to his age and access to a motorcycle similar to the one described by witnesses. The detectives learned that the son, James VanCallis, had a history of minor offenses. Although these past transgressions were not directly related to violent crime, they added layers to his profile. The police delved deeper, seeking to understand his character, his past, and his potential motives. The investigation revealed unsettling details. James's father had a criminal history that included violent acts against minors, a revelation that cast a dark shadow over the family. The detectives grappled with the implications of this discovery, pondering the influence of such a background on James's behavior. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, the police shifted their focus to building a case against James VanCallis. They scrutinized his alibi, analyzed his movements on the night of the murder, and gathered evidence to place him at the scene. Amidst this flurry of activity, the community of Armada watched with bated breath. The tranquility of their village had been shattered, and now they yearned for closure, for justice for April. The streets, once alive with neighborly camaraderie, were now tinged with a sense of weariness and sorrow. As the net tightened around James VanCallis, the police prepared to make their move, armed with evidence, witness testimonies, and a determined resolve to bring April's killer to justice. They stood on the threshold of a significant breakthrough. The village of Armada, forever changed by the tragedy, awaited the impending climax of this harrowing saga. The pursuit of truth had brought them to this moment, a moment where the veil of mystery would finally be lifted, revealing the face of the monster who had walked among them. James VanCallis, who had become the center of the investigation, found himself at the center of a carefully woven web of evidence, each pointing to his guilt. The police, armed with a plethora of evidence, witness testimony, and forensic evidence, took the decisive step. They arrested James VanCallis and brought him in for questioning. The residents of Armada, still reeling from the horror of what had happened in their midst, watched with a mixture of relief and apprehension. In the interrogation room, the detectives laid out their arguments against James. The evidence was compelling. Digital recordings indicating that he had been in the vicinity of the crime scene, witnesses who had seen a man matching his description, and the ghostly evidence of a text message April had sent minutes before her untimely death. When the trial began, the courtroom became a microcosm of the village's grief and search for justice. April's family, friends, and neighbors filled the pews, each carrying the burden of loss and the hope for closure. The prosecution presented a version that portrayed James VanCallis as a predator who encountered April that fateful evening. They claimed that a combination of rejection and rage drove him to commit the heinous act, forever destroying Armada's innocence. VanCallis' defense team objected, pointing to the circumstantial nature of the evidence and the lack of specific forensic evidence directly linking him to the crime. They painted a picture of a flawed investigation that was driven by a desire to find the culprit rather than establish the truth. The trial became a battlefield of versions, each seeking to sway the jury to its side. Testimony, evidence, and expert opinions were woven into a complex tapestry of facts and interpretations. As the jury deliberated, there was silence on Armada. The gravity of the moment was palpable, the heart of the community beating in unison, waiting for a verdict that would either bring comfort or prolong the agony of uncertainty. The verdict was delivered with the seriousness it deserved. Guilty. James VanCallis was found guilty of the murder of April Millsap and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The collective sigh, a mixture of relief and sadness, swept through the courtroom and the village beyond. After the trial, Armada began the slow process of healing. The memory of April, a bright, vibrant soul who had gone too soon, was honored in a way that reflected her spirit. A memorial garden was created, a place of beauty and peace where residents could come together to remember her and find solace. The garden, nurtured by the hands of those who loved her, became a symbol of resilience and unity. Flowers bloomed, trees grew, benches provided a place for quiet reflection, and every element testified to April's enduring legacy. In this sacred space, the people of Armada found a way to move forward, carrying April's memory in their hearts. Justice had been served, but the path to healing was just beginning, a path traveled with the strength and love that April Millsap had inspired in them all.